Hello, welcome to a new video. Today I'm drawing Jake Gyllenhaal from The Day After Tomorrow. The Day After Tomorrow it was one of my favourite films as a child, and it still is. It's really something. I mean, it raised a lot of awareness about global warming. I don't think it would be the big topic it is now about this film. They really pushed the boundaries. So if you haven't seen the film, or if you have and just want me to talk about it, it starts off with... Sorry, I got distracted by my drawing. So whatever. So Jake Gyllenhaal is kind of this nerdy guy, and he's in this nerdy Olympics team with his two friends, and one of them is a very pretty girl who he fancies, and he's not actually that nerdy or into it, but he fancies her, so that's why he joined. And his dad is this kind of cool guy who's works for the government. Oh yeah, and then he's in India being oh yeah, global warming's happening, wake up, blah blah blah. And they were oh haha, shut up, that's not funny. Even though it's snowing and they're in India and they're climate change. And yeah, so they dismiss him, his dad. But anyways, back to Jake and his friends. They go to New York on a trip with their quizzing team, and they're on an airplane, and then there's crazy turbulence. And maybe this is one of the things that started my fears of flying. I mean, it was fine, it was just a bit turbulent, but then all the baggage things opened, and the food truck went all the way down the aisle, and one of the air hostesses had to get out of her seat because the food truck was gonna smash her up. And Jake Gyllenhaal was there freaking out and eating his candy, and then his friends being all nerdy oh, there's some sort of nothing % chance that this plane will crash in turbulence. But then later on they find out on the news some planes had crashed in turbulence because of the crazy weather that started happening. So yeah, and then Jake Gyllenhaal's mother in this film is a nurse, and then there's a kid with cancer who she's looking after and all this. But yeah, it's really something. But yeah, they're in New York, and then this massive wave comes. You know how they love in films to fuck with the Empire State, not the Empire State Building. They like to fuck with that also, but the Statue of Liberty. And then the wave comes and it goes over the Statue of Liberty, and everyone's what the fuck, whoa, everyone's running, and they're running, but then his kind and beautiful friend stops because there's this people in a taxi and they speak French maybe, and the police officer's I don't understand you, I don't speak French, blah blah blah. But because she's kind and beautiful, she can speak French, and she helps them, and they can't find her passport or something, and they're trapped in a car, and then they have to help them. But because she does this, and the big wave's coming, she doesn't notice, she turns around, she's whoa, big wave, she has to run, but she cuts her leg on a car, which becomes important later, but you have to wait and see for that one. Well, I guess if you've seen the film you know, but yeah. So anyways, I'm filling in his eyebrows here. He's got very good eyebrows, but yeah, he gets stuck in New York because of this big old wave, and then he's phoning his dad, who's this cool weather guy who warned everyone. He did tell him this was happening, but he thought it was going to be I don't know, a few 100 years or whatever, but then it was a few weeks or something, or days. It was happening now. And there's these crazy big things. They look like hurricanes, but they're cold, and in the middle it's not windy at all. There's it's still, but it's freezing. And oh yeah, the British royal family dies. It's funny. They're flying up to Scotland to protect them in helicopters, and it's and then they're driving through the storm what? And then they get into the middle of the ice hurricane, and the propeller blades stop, they crash, but they were right. But then because everything freezes, the fuel lines freeze, and then he opens the door, one of the people who work for the royals, he opens the door and he's wah, this, and he freezes instantly, as he opens the door. So yeah, I guess everyone in Cypher is also pretty cool. I mean, not cool, but you know. Ooh, that's a pun. But yeah, so back to Jake Gyllenhaal in New York. He phones his dad, and then his dad's like, "You stay there, I will get you, I will get you." And you know, he's a pretty good dad and all that. Like, he thinks he let him down by not being there so much as a kid, but you know, not many dads would come get you when like a global crisis is happening. So yeah, he's a good guy. But yeah, then they're just like, there's a lot of people in the library, because I'm in the library in New York, like a big one, and everyone's like, oh, now because it got cold, now the big wave, like the water has frozen over and people are walking, they're like, oh, we can walk to somewhere safer, like it's a good idea. But Jake Gyllenhaal's like, no, my dad says to stay here, we can't leave, but this police officer's like, no, we have to go, blah blah blah. And then he goes like, Jake Gyllenhaal goes like, these people will die if they stay here. And these people will die if they leave. Sorry, I lied. And he did not lie though. He was right. Because these people leave, and then inevitably they get frozen and stuff, and they realise they've done fucked up. But yeah, so then Jake Gyllenhaal and his like two nerdy friends and a few other people like stay together in the library, and yeah, try to wait it out, like start a fire, start burning books. They go to like the vending machines and get snacks, and yeah, they're just like waiting it out, burning books. There's one like library guy is holding on to like the first edition of the Bible or some shit, and yeah, someone's like, oh, you think God's gonna save you? And he's like, no, I'm not religious. Like, he's talking more about like the written word and literature, like, oh, if this is the collapse of the Western civilization, I'm gonna hold on to one little bit of it. So that's quite profound from the library guy. And then, oh yeah, the smart and beautiful friend of Jake Gyllenhaal, I feel like her name's like Laura or something, but whatever. She cuts her, because her leg got cut in the big wave event. It's now like gone like sepsis, like bad times. But luckily, this like big Russian boat thing had like stopped and frozen next to where they are in the library. So Jake Gyllenhaal and like two nerdy guys go to like get something like the thing that's like good for that sort of thing, to stop her getting gangrene and all that. And they go in there, but it's all in Russian. Oh, penicillin. I remembered it, penicillin. They go in there and they're like, what? This is all in Russian, blah blah blah. But then they find it, but these like really scary wolves are in there, and I know they're CGI, and you shouldn't be scared of CGI, but I was terrified of them. Like, they're like smacking themselves against the wall. They're getting mental, these wolves. They're like, they have to like run. It's a really tense moment. Yeah, it's flipping scary. But they manage to get out of it, and one guy gets his leg bit, but then they help him out. So yeah, they get back in there, but this is when, because like separate to this, I mean, I can't say this whole movie in this short amount of time, I'm just focusing more on Jake Gyllenhaal, but his dad has been like trying to get him, and this is the sort of moment when his dad is in New York, and the ice hurricane has just arrived, so, and like they're just coming into the middle of it, and like it works, like it starts at the top freezing and like comes down like and it's like smashing all the windows of the Empire State Building one at a time. Like both Jake Gyllenhaal and his dad are like rushing to get in, because like he's got his friend with a leg after getting the penicillin and the whole situation, and then his dad has a friend who's like been knocked out somehow, so then they both have to like get their friends and themselves inside like quick into a fire and like keep the fire going, because otherwise they're going to freeze like instantly. So then they do this, and it works out for both of them, you'll be happy to hear. And yeah, so yeah, and then like the next day or something, the Jake Gyllenhaal's dad and his friend is like, trying to find him after like the storm has passed, and they find him, and then they like get into this room and open the door, and they see all these people like cuddled up, and then the smart and beautiful girl is like, oh, who's that? And Jake Gyllenhaal looks up and goes like, it's my dad. And it's a very beautiful moment between father and son, I must say. And like, his like, dad's looking like, yeah, like he's proud, like, yeah, I got my boy. But I'll tell you a bit about Jake Gyllenhaal's dad's story. He's like a weather guy working with the government, and he basically he doesn't really like the vice president stuff because no one listens to him. But then of course, like they were like, he was like, well, look what's happened, I was right. So yeah, he goes out on this like trek to save Jake Gyllenhaal with like his two friends. One's like this old guy, and one's like this like kind of younger cheeky guy, and they go out and they're like trekking around, At one point they go over the top of a shopping centre with like a glass roof, and the old guy falls through. Big whoopsie. And like because they're connected with like a rope because they're like trekking around in like a big snowstorm. Like he doesn't fall completely, he's just like dangling there at the top of the shopping centre. And like the other guy that's not Jake Gyllenhaal's dad's like looking at him and he's like holding on, and then he's like, oh, it's too heavy, like you can't pull me back up because the glass roof is gonna break. And then he gets a knife out very dramatically. It's like, oh, I'm too heavy, blah blah blah, and like cuts the rope so he like smashes into like the escalators. And like yeah, he sacrifices himself to save Jake Gyllenhaal's dad and his like friend, the cheeky friend. So I mean that was very good of him. But yeah, you probably didn't even need to go on that trek, so it's a bit awkward that he died. I think Jake Gyllenhaal's dad felt very guilty about that, but you know, he went to save his son in New York. Not the fun trip to New York you might want, but there we go. And yeah, what else can I say about it? He gets there, and then there's something to do with the mum in the hospital, like one ambulance doesn't arrive and she stays with the kid, but then an ambulance did arrive, so it's okay. Oh, and like the tables like turn, like everyone like in America is wanting to go to Mexico because it's like a bit warmer down there. So then it's like the tables are turned, everyone's trying to cross the Mexican border, and at the end they forgive like all foreign debts, and like because the places they call like, you know, air quotes third world countries, like the safer places, because you know a lot of them are in warmer climates. So yeah, it happens crazy like that. And then this one happened in real life, but then the president's very humble, like, oh, you know, like we done like this bad thing, we learned our lesson, we need to change. And it was very cool for the astronauts, so the astronauts have just been in space for the whole of this, and then they look out the window and like they're like, oh, this is the clearest it's ever been after the storms clear up. Yeah. But there's many cool scenes I haven't even mentioned, like the tornado scene. There's like 5 tornadoes, and they're all in like some big city in America, of course. But it's a really intense scene. I would recommend watching the tornado scene at least just for like the fun of it. There's one bit where it's like this cleaner's cleaning, and it's like, wow, what the hell? And he like opens the door, and half like the skyscraper is gone. Like, it's just wiped out. But yeah, anyways, that's me talking about The Day After Tomorrow. Very good film, would recommend. And yeah, Jake Gyllenhaal's best performance, I would say. Very good acting from all involved. Everyone put a lot of effort in. And yeah, and I put a lot of effort into painting this on Microsoft Paint. There you have it. Jake Gyllenhaal looking scared and cold, because this is the scene where like the cold hurricane comes. There he is, with his little scarf around his head. Oh, and that's me. That's what I look like, if you were wondering.